In terms of engagement, was the Twitter group more or less or equally engaged as a control group? More, absolutely. Of course, I wouldn't be here, right, if it was less. They'd be like, you suck. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. It was a positive feedback loop. She asked, do you think that you as faculty were more engaged with the students using Twitter? Yes, they engaged us more, right? We had no preconceived notion. We would just thought, we'd kind of be on there, but they kept talking to us in ways that the students on Ning didn't. Yes. I would say overall, it was a huge time commitment not because of the Twitter part, okay? And I'll get to that. Take the Twitter part out, the research part. We collected every single thing. Back in the day, there was no Twopper Keeper, which there's not going to be any more Twopper Keeper anymore, with the new terms of service, or at least not the same way. So I actually was calling on the API sometimes daily, certainly weekly, to get the data, right? And me not being a qualitative researcher, right? I'm like grabbing all this quality because I'm just anal about that. I can't let data go to waste because sooner or later we might use it. And so kind of just staying on top of that, working with the faculty members. So that was the engagement on Twitter. Doing that certainly was a little more time commitment, right? I see it as this, though. It was much more efficient than anything else we could have done. I think to get these results, you would have to spend so much face-to-face time with students, maybe individually, and you can do other things to engage students, but in terms of efficiency, I think this was a very efficient method. So you remember what I said about grades, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here at South by that I thought that there would be no effects on grades. I'm actually on record presenting some preliminary data online. You can find it online where I said I didn't think there was going to be effective grades before we collected grades data, but there was. The Twitter group had significantly higher overall first semester GPAs than the control group by a half point. The mean was a half point. I should say that these results were very robust because of the analyses we needed to run. We lost some power because we randomized at the level of the sections. So if we actually randomized at the section at the level of the student, we probably would have had even more robust findings. The average would have been the same, but the significance testing numbers would have been the same. So 125. Yep. The second study, completely different question, based on some of the backstory I told you about Facebook. The question was, left alone, will student use of Twitter have an effect on engagement? And here's how we did this. This study was done in a large lecture-sized media and democracy class, a general ed requirement at a large research institution, one of those huge courses that, some students show up to, some don't. And the class met twice a week, and one day a week, Tuesday was the lecture, the Thursday time was the discussion, and during the discussion, they did a hashtag, so they didn't do like an account, they did a hashtag, and projected the Twitter stream up on the screen, but didn't really call much attention to it, right? Taught students how to use Twitter at the beginning, just like we did in the controlled study, but let them self-select whether they wanted to use Twitter or not, right? And no encouragement as to how to use Twitter. Like we, kind of really engaged with them in the first study, not in this one. So same kind of design with some students choosing to use Twitter, some not. Interestingly enough, the two groups were equal in terms of size. I thought that was just kind of fascinating that about 50% wanted to use Twitter. We did, in our model, grades or our hypotheses, grades are in our hypotheses, but we don't have those data yet because we're waiting on them from the registrar. They're a little slower than we are in doing these things. So keep in mind, there was no random assignment, right? There was no control, really. I mean, we let students self-select. We weren't keeping all things equal between the groups except the one thing, which was Twitter. No, we just let them self-select. There was no encouragement. There were a couple of times in the semester where something significant was posted in the tweet stream, and it was brought back into the discussion, but generally that wasn't done, okay? So the results, the pretty content analyses again. Let's look at the surface of it. The themes looks like they were talking about class. Remember, this is a media and democracy course. They were talking about people. They were talking about news. They were talking about money. They were talking, that's right, I'm not going to forget the shit. I'll get back to that. They were talking about games. The shit theme is awesome, by the way. When I saw this, I was like, oh, people at South by are going to love this. They were talking about Guy. Check this guy out, right? Facebook, no joke, that's really what they were talking about. Facebook they used for class. On the surface of it, I would say somewhat similar. You might have a different take on it, and I'd love to hear that because this is a paper that we haven't even started writing yet, but it's next on our docket. So the people theme, honest people running, for office would be awesome, but I'm not sure we're ever going to have the perfect candidate. Americans are the best entertained but least informed people on the face of the earth. Woot, woot. I like the President Obama came to talk at this university, and somebody tweeted his quote out, "We need you to be as proud of the people in the lab as your football team on the field. That makes geeks like me happy." Right? News, I love this first quote. The news is influencing how we think critically about it. Think about it. I keep thinking this is like the sound of one hand clapping, man. This is awesome. That really was one of my favorite tweets from this data set. I think some students find it difficult to separate news from commentary. What do you think? This is them asking these questions, right? What's more important, Jersey Shore or Channel 8 News? Don't ask Ray Junco, I don't watch either. And then the shit theme. Of course, I'm going to talk about that. Totally not looking forward to having kids and then wanting me to buy them shit. Keeping it real. My next talk should be keeping it real on Twitter and find the keeping it real themes, right? A little plug for Netflix, whatever's. Philly Inquirer is my shit. This is my second favorite. Obama probably won't get shit done these next 2 years with all these Republicans hating. They need to hate the game, not the player. $100 says that was a white kid who wrote that. The simple fact that our degrees will say blankety blank blank university is why they can raise tuition and we can't do shit. Right. So statistics. What did we find? Were our Twitter students equally more or less engaged than the students who chose not to use Twitter? Thoughts? More. It looks like it, right? I mean, the themes look like they were doing it. Yes? That was the whole point of the backstory, right? Usage is not usage is not usage. Time spent on Facebook, connecting with people is different than just lurking or Facebook stalking, right? I ask students a lot, because, I'm a faculty member, I'm an advisor, I try to help students be successful. How much time do you spend studying, right? And they might say, whatever, 5 hours. Then what's the next question you have to ask? Yeah, what are you doing when you're studying? What are you doing when you're studying? And that's the quality part. So time is not time is not time. Although on the surface, it looked like they were really getting into that course content. There was no effect of using Twitter in this way. Why? Here's what I think. And please, please, please challenge me hard on this one, because then I can anticipate reviewer comments on the paper. Here's the deal. Engagement clearly is important. The process of us being involved is clearly important. The connections they have with us, the modeling, the using it, because I think in the first study, we used it a lot like, if you're a member of any hashtag communities on Twitter, right, it seemed more like that, right, because there were people really engaging and communicating as well as microblogging.